What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here, and I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. I just wanted to do a video right now about shit hits the fan situation, scenario number 8, which is going to be about your bug out vehicle or your bug out route. If you run into a problem on your way to your bug out location, for example, if your bug out vehicle breaks down, or if your route gets compromised somehow. For example, if the authorities shut down certain parts of your route, you know, they may shut down, for example, bridges. They're probably going to close certain bridges, or they're going to funnel people into certain areas. So you know, you have to think about, what would you do in that situation? You know, what would you do if your bug out route got compromised? You run into, let's say, some trouble on the way. Like, another thing too is not just roadblocks from authorities, but also if some bandits and some, you know, low-level people, if they create roadblocks to try to trap people and steal their supplies, or, you know, just have their way with, you know, whatever they want to do. That's something to think about. How would you handle a roadblock by some bandits? You know, how would you handle a situation where the authorities close down your bug out route? Or how would you handle a situation where your vehicle got compromised? You know, if your vehicle breaks down, there's something, let's say you get, you know, a mechanical failure that's, you know, greater than a flat tire or something, you know, that you could fix on the side of the road. You have to have some plans in place. You know, what would be your contingency plan in that situation, so you can, you know, move forward and get closer to your bug out location, or, you know, provide a safe area for you and your family to shelter in while you figure out what you're gonna do. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind, you know, because you know, obviously the authorities are going to be closing down certain roads, and it's really unpredictable. There's no way you're going to know which roads get closed down or why. So you could be going down a desolate highway, you know, and you think that everything's okay, and then it could be shut down for some reason and they're not letting you through, or something like that. There could also be, like I said, bandits that set up ambushes or roadblocks to try to harm you. So, you know, it's good to just keep that in the back of your mind, and think about how you would handle that. Let's say your vehicle broke down, you know, and you're halfway between your house and your bug out location. It's obviously going to be too far for you to walk to either one. You know, you're going to have to, you know, figure out a way to shelter. You know, it probably would not be a wise idea to just shelter inside of your vehicle. You know, even if, let's say, you have like an RV or something like that, I would not recommend sheltering in your vehicle right on the side of a highway or a road, you know, because people are going to see that you're broken down and they're going to try to investigate, especially if they're, you know, lower level people, you know, looking for, you know, supplies or whatever. You know, the best thing to do would be to try to find a nearby shelter area that you can shelter in. If that means, you know, rigging up a shelter in the woods, you know, for one night, you know, it could mean, you know, finding some abandoned buildings, gaining entry to vacated homes. You know, a lot of people are going to be evacuating their homes, and the homes are going to be empty. You know, so if you're with your family and you break down in, let's say, a certain area, you may be able to gain entry to an abandoned house that people evacuated from, and you can use that to shelter. It's a much better situation than being, you know, inside of your car, you know, or in a tarp shelter on the side of the road. You know, plus you can create some kind of defensive strategy if you're inside of a house. You know, so if somebody tries to come and get you, you know, you have a better chance at fighting someone off, or a group of people off, in a house than you do, you know, in a little vehicle. So that's something to consider. you know, it's good to keep maps of your bug out route and the areas around it, so this way you know what's around the area. So if you do break down, you have some way of, you know, some way of figuring out where you can go, and you can kind of get your bearings, you know, see what's around, see if there's any shelter areas, if there's any areas where you can find resources, food, water, fuel. You know, the biggest ones are going to be food, water, or actually it's going to be water, shelter, probably shelter first, water, fuel, and food. You know, those will be your top four priorities if you break down, or if you get stuck on your bug out route for whatever reason. You're going to obviously need shelter, you know, because if we're talking about, let's say right now it's the winter time, it's going to be cold outside, there may be a snowstorm, you're going to need shelter from the cold. So that's your first priority. You're going to die from frost, from hypothermia, before you're going to die from dehydration. Then you're going to want to see if there's any water bodies around, and that's where the maps come into play. You know, same thing with the shelter. You know, if you have a map, you can see where, if there's any, you know, maybe some areas where you could shelter, like a park, you know, some neighborhoods that have abandoned buildings in them, things like that. And then the map will also help you locate water resources, you know, streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, reservoirs, things like that. You could also get water from buildings too. You know, even if the power is out, there's still going to be water in you know, pressurized in the faucets. You can try to gain entry to a building and get some water from the faucets. Then you have your food resources, you know, which I'm not going to really get too into. And then fuel is critical. You're going to need fuel if you're bugging out to your location, so you're going to want to know, you know, maybe mark on your map, you know, areas where you could obtain fuel from. So, you know, obviously gas stations, things like that, you know. So, you know, my tip, like I said, would be to just have some maps of your bug out route. You know, that's just common sense. So this way, if you get stuck on the side of the road for whatever reason, you know, you're kind of familiar, you have an idea of what's going on around you. So, you know, it's definitely a good idea to have maps. And that's pretty much, you know, there's not much else that could really be said. You know, just think about how you would handle that situation yourself, because everybody has different plans in place. You know, your situation is going to be different than anybody else's, where you're going to, you know, where you, and it's not just for a bug out location. It could also be, you know, if you're just evacuating, let's say there's a hurricane, because this is much more realistic, you know, a hurricane, and you're ordered to evacuate from your area, and you're in that situation, your bug out location is going to be maybe a hotel in a different state, or a family member's house in a different state. So think about what you would do if, you know, let's say you're evacuating, and you know, let's say your car breaks down, you know, things like that. You get into a roadblock, you know, there's some looters, you know, blocking, you know, the road or something. You know, you have to think about how you would handle that situation. And obviously it's good to have a concealed weapons permit anytime you're traveling, especially in SHTF, you know, because if you're on the road and you run into trouble, you know, a firearm is going to be very helpful in defending yourself and your family. So, you know, it's good to have a concealed weapons permit if you can get one. Obviously, if not, then you may have to just, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to really recommend anything, because, you know, for legal reasons. But, you know, just know your laws in the different states. You know, be familiar with firearms laws so you don't get in trouble. But, you know, you could keep like a long gun in the back of your trunk or something, you know, and if you run into some, you know, bad people on the way, you know, you could always get that from the trunk. You know, it's better than nothing. But ideally something that you could carry on your person, you know, a pistol on your person would be the ideal thing to have in that situation, because if you're driving and you come across an ambush, you're going to need access to your firearm right away, because they may already have guns drawn on you. You know, so having that firearm, you want to have access to it, quick access. So so it's just something to think about. Keep that in the back of your mind if you know, as you guys do your, you know, preparations It's always something that you should think about. And then it's always good to carry spare fuel, obviously, because you may run out of fuel. And if it's a SHTF crisis, the gas is gonna be burned up real. People are gonna be using up gas quick. You know, people are gonna be buying up gas. So you always want to have gas on hand. You know, especially in your bug out vehicle, or you know, whatever vehicle you have to escape to a safer area. You're gonna want to have spare gas, a couple of spare gas cans. You know, it's always good to keep some spare gas in your house, at least like 10 or 20 gallons, so this way you can have a spare tank of fuel for your car, or you know, whatever. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm just gonna keep this one short. You know, just use your imagination. There's not much really else to really say about this. So thanks for watching, and hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and I'll catch up with you soon. All right, take care. God bless.